And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Polizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Hello, my friends. This is Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 298 of This Old Marketing, recorded Thursday, November 18th, 2021. And with me, as always, my good friend, my colleague, and really, if you think about it, the only guy who knows where Taylor Swift's red scarf really is, Mr. Joe Polizzi. It's a good reference,
I hate it when you throw me off like that. I was really expecting something like a football reference, or since the Browns got destroyed last week, and your Cowboys came back, which was nice.
Slightly, yeah.
Certainly nice for my fantasy roster that has Dak Prescott on it, but
that's right. Yeah. Well, and do you know about the Taylor Swift thing? Yes,
I don't know about it.
You don't know about it.
I know, I know. Okay, this is what I know, and you tell me. I know that that she re-recorded all of her music, and it's been in the news lately because they're all performing better, and she's sort of taking back the rights to her music.
Well,
I don't know the red scarf thing.
This, as you're going to find out, this is perfectly on theme for not only the show but for this particular episode of the show.
Okay,
because what she's doing is brilliant influencer and content marketing with the way that she's marketing this new. Yes, it's exactly right. So the 2012 album Red, she has now re-released because she is in the process of re-recording all of her albums because of the fact that her publishing was purchased by Scooter Braun and Company, which we've talked about on the show, and she didn't really own the publishing rights, and so she's re-recording all of her old albums so that when they are played on Spotify and wherever, you're playing the new version, which they don't own the publishing rights on. Therefore, they don't get the royalties. She gets the royalties.
So brilliant, by the way.
It's a brilliant move.
Wow.
It's absolutely brilliant. And so she's now released Red, which of course came out in 2012, but now she has Red, Taylor's version. And it's got some expanded stuff on it. And the thing is, there's the song All Too Well, which is a 10-minute song, which she couldn't have ever released as a single or even really done that well in 2012 because it was 10 minutes long, and who the heck is Taylor Swift to do something 10 minutes long? But now she's Taylor Swift.
She can do anything she wants. Yeah.
At Saturday Night Live, she didn't do the two classic performances. She does one performance that is 10 minutes long. She makes a short film about it. It's all about Jake Gyllenhaal, apparently, and her relationship, but it's all about a red scarf. And so now the internet has gone completely mad, and all these brands are tweeting out things about red scarves.
Oh, it's it's memeified. Jeez.
Yes, exactly. She's created an entire meme about red scarves, and it's. I just think it's brilliant. It's brilliant marketing. It's brilliant PR. It's just so good.
So where is the red scarf?
I don't think anybody knows.
Nobody knows
that's
this.
The whole
she
point.
doesn't.
Yes.
She doesn't sing about it in the song. It's not in any one of the 10 minutes.
My favorite one. What's her name? Oh gosh, darn it! The singer that from the 1970s. I'm totally blanking on the name. Put out a tweet. She's like a grandmother now, and she put out a tweet, and she's like, I think Jake should return that red scarf because it's not his scarf to keep. He should put it into the... And she's like, I'll pay the postage, Jake.
Oh, no. No, you got to figure out who that is. I would like. Yeah, it's not like Joan Baez or anything like that, right? I mean, what are you talking about here?
Hold on.
Well, this is not good. This is not good radio here.
Dionne Warwick.
Oh, Dionne Warwick.
Dionne Warwick.
I totally went the other direction on that.
Yeah.
Oh, well, of course. I mean, Dionne can say whatever she wants, by the way.
That's right.
She's fantastic.
Right. Yeah. This is the So what we're trying to do here, folks, is alternative programming to the football. You see what we do here? How much we love you is that we're doing the alternative programming to football. We're talking about Taylor and the red scarf and Dionne Warwick, but it's. I just think it's brilliant content marketing is what I think.
I think, well, we'll talk about a lot of this in the episode, but I think the whole idea of, that's what I love. Whatever definition that you have for Web3, I think what I'm feeling, I don't know about you, Robert, but I'm feeling the pendulum swing toward creator rights more than ever before. And this is, Taylor's leading the way in this whole thing, where I was on, yesterday I was on Carla Johnson's LinkedIn show, and we were talking about this, and I said, there's never been a better time to be an artist, to be a musician, to be a creator, and you couldn't have said that a couple years ago. And we were talking about, like, traditional jobs like being a doctor, being a lawyer, you get highly paid, they're highly touted, you go to school, those types of things. And you would never expect for somebody to say, I'm an artist, and could that person possibly make more money than the doctor or lawyer? Well, today, you don't know.
That's right.
Because of these new opportunities, because of whatever you want to call it, tokenization, you can be an artist and you can be a musician, and if you have content and a small, loyal audience, you can build a multi-million-dollar platform and have more freedom and more choices than if you were a doctor or a lawyer or some other traditional highly paid profession, which is fascinating. We don't know where it's going to go, but I love that there's this opportunity first time for lowly creators, quote unquote.
Well, here's something. Here's just another data point for you, because I just speaking of doctors and lawyers. So remember last week I was on the road and we talked about how I was at this event, speaking at this event, which happened to be for small and medium sized law firms.
Okay.
And so I learned something. I mean, I learned a lot of things about that industry, and I'm just so fascinated with it from a marketing perspective. But one of the things that I learned is how many, first of all, most of them are crushing it these days, right? Whether they're in family law or personal injury law or estate, planning.
Everybody's suing each other.
There's a whole thing about, law about how does somebody put it, one that was talking to me at a party, and they said there's the law about where somebody has to win or lose, and basically somebody has to lose, which is not that interesting. But the more interesting law practices are those that are based on transactions where everybody wins. Basically, your job as a lawyer is to facilitate a transaction where everybody wins. And they said that's much more rewarding. Anyway, that's
wills,
a whole other
trust,
thing.
Partnerships, all
those kinds of things.
Yeah,
exactly.
Absolutely.
Transactions, companies buying companies, all that sort of stuff.
Oh, yeah, you got it. I would agree with that.
Yeah. But the interesting thing, this is just to your point, was how many, because I was there, of course, talking about content marketing and the strategies around that and how, how they might think about that. And of course, I come to it like, this is, going to help you grow, and this is going to help you grow your practice and get more leads, and, and how many of them were like, meh, that's nice. But what I'm really interested in is how do I decrease the amount of time and effort and bandwidth of my personal life I'm spending doing law, and how much I can start to build another business on top of that. So most of them, and this is all anecdotal, by the way, I don't have no data to support this, but the most of them were much more interested in content marketing as, hey, how can I build something that I'm really passionate about, whether it be, giving back to the community or making money at or whatever it be, but something really content and digitally oriented that maybe it's nice if it helps me get more business, but really it's just because I'm passionate about something else.
Well, I've heard that not just from lawyers. I've heard this from a number of professions that make money during the day while they're working and not while they're sleeping. And they all say they want to make money while they sleep.
Yeah.
And I think that's what you're talking about, right? How can you build
exactly.
How can you build an audience and then sell whatever it is you sell, whether that's access through partnership deals or whether that's actually products and services that you don't have to be around for. That's a big it's a very big deal. That's why you and you've been in the consulting business for over 20 years now, right? Almost about 20 years. And you've talked about that a lot. You love consulting, but for the most part, you have to be there. you have to be present as a consultant. And you've worked and you've worked over the years. You've done different things to work in, so you don't always have to be there, which I think everybody wants just for quality of life purposes. I mean, who doesn't? So
well, and I may be working on something that you know about that the rest of you don't. That may start to change that a little bit. And
this is coming very exciting, but we can't talk about that yet.
We can't talk about that yet.
That's okay. Yeah. We will soon. We're all working on lots of things.
We're all working on something.
We're working on all the things, but we can't talk about any of the things until we work out the bugs within the things, and then we can discuss all the other things.
That's right. Hashtag all the things. Yeah. That's right.
All right.
Well, and speaking of hashtag all the things, let me first of all thank everybody again out there for all the amazing questions that are coming in for our 300th episode, which is, by the way, in 2 weeks. It's amazing.
Oh my gosh!
Even think about.
We got to get our stuff together. Our things together.
I know. Yeah, we got to start. You got to start actually putting the work in. Anyway, if it's not too late, we really, really want your questions, especially your audio questions. We'd love to feature your voice, your dulcet tones on the show itself. And so, if you go to thisoldmarketing.site. As you discovered maybe last week when you listened to Joe, there's a wonderful little microphone in the lower right-hand corner where you can record your question, or there's an option for you.
There's a banner at the
whole
top.
app. Like, make it worth our while. Like, make it worth Joe's while that he actually went to the effort to do all that, and you could put your question in there, or simply tweet us up at hashtag thisoldmarketing and ask your question there. And if you get your question on the show, we're going to be giving away some prizes for those folks. For Joe and the beautiful, wonderful, valuable Tilt Coin, we'll be at $50 of Tilt Coin. And then from me, which it's just dawned on me that you're also part of this, the Killing Marketing book will send you.
Was I a co-author on that book?
I don't know. Really?
Maybe.
I mean, it felt like I did all the work, but
you did. You absolutely did all that. Well, that's what that's why our books work really well together when we do them, because we've co-authored.
It's why your books work really well. I mean, quite honestly, it's because how much of my stuff you put in there.
It's actually, I found it to be a winning formula to take a lot of your thinking and then put my name on it. It's worked well for me.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see how it works out for me.
It's worked out pretty darn well over the years. But anyways, I digress.
Anyway, yeah, so submit your questions, get those in, because that's going to be fun. And we joke, we have actually been working on the show, and it's coming along very, very nicely, and some surprise guests and all that kind of stuff as well. Wishing us well on our 300th episode.
So next week is $2.99. So that's our Thanksgiving episode, which will be a sort of a special episode, and then the next week we will be doing the 300th. And is there anything else?
Tell your friends, tell your family.
Yeah, are we going to tell them?
It's going to be a hoot nanny.
Are we going to tell any that we're producing it a little bit differently, or no? We're not doing. What are we doing?
Well, we're going to produce it a little differently. We're doing video. I think
that's what I was going. I didn't know if we told them. This will be our first video
podcast. Which so you'll get to see our ugly mugs.
Could go horribly wrong.
It's going to go horribly wrong.
I mean,
it's just a question of how wrong it's going to go.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean. I'm not used to looking. We don't even look at each other during. We actually just use a phone line, Skype
That's
line.
Right.
But it's the same thing. So this is going to be really odd. I'm going to have to look at the camera and pay attention to you.
I know. It's going to be.
All right, we'll figure it out.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. Yes, we will. Yes, we will.
All right.
All right, let's get to the news, shall we? I think you are going to notice a little bit of a theme this week, and it's got media, it's got some content, some marketing, and interestingly enough, some fights over rights. But Disney was apparently listening to Joe last week for our first news, and basically changed their entire strategy based on Joe's comment. So I was happy to hear about that. Joe has mad influence with the Disney folks.
Oh, yes.
This first one comes to us courtesy of The Guardian. Big hat tip, by the way, to Michael Stelzner. Hi, Mike. for sending this over to us. And it's the headline here is interesting. It says, "A whole new world. Disney is the latest firm to announce metaverse plans." The subheadline, "Entertainment company plans to connect the physical and digital worlds, allowing for storytelling without boundaries." The article opens up by saying, "Hi ho, it's off to the metaverse we go." I'm sure that writer was very proud of that opening line. If Walt Disney gets its way, the home of Mickey Mouse and Princess Elsa has revealed it is planning to join the likes of Mark Zuckerberg and Microsoft in the metaverse. The new tech concept, a blending of the physical and digital worlds where people can interact virtually, is becoming a multi-billion-dollar fixation for Silicon Valley executives, including the Facebook founder who is staking his company's future on its success. And now Hollywood is taking note too, according to Disney chief executive Bob Chapek, who said on Wednesday the company was preparing to take the leap into virtual reality. Referring to Disney's history of innovation in storytelling, which includes the Mickey Mouse cartoon Steamboat Willie, one of the first to feature synchronized sound, Chapek said, "The Walt Disney Company has a long track record as an early adopter in the use of technology to enhance the entertainment experience." The article goes on to talk about the concept, augmented reality, where elements of the digital world are layered on top, virtual world, some things like wearables, all that sort of thing. It sounds to me, I'd love to get your take on this, Joe, you being the mad influencer here. To me, it sounds like this is Disney going, yeah, chill out, we're going there, right? We don't know what it is yet, but we'll get there, right? And so that it feels to me like a non-story, but you tell me what you think.
No, I think you're right. I think it's a non-story. Of course, Disney has plans in this area, and I'm sure you've seen some of their NFT drops. They're pretty cool, where you can buy, Mickey or an actual Walt Disney, and they're doing a limited edition run of. And the NFTs are different than the metaverse, so but still they are dabbling and experimenting, which we'll talk about in this episode. There are a lot of brands that are experimenting in this area, and well, they should. We're all sort of experimenting. I think if anybody from Disney is listening to me, I'm fine with the experimentation, but there is a lot of real important work that needs to be done outside the metaverse right now. And this article talks a little bit about Disney Plus, which they have their 120 million subscribers to that platform against Netflix's 214. We talked about it, I think it was last episode or a couple ago, where Disney has not done a great job integrating all the things that they have. And there's such an opportunity there. Like I talked to you about, I think, The Mandalorian, and I'm a fan. Well, why don't they know that I'm a fan? Why am I not getting any kind of offers for some kind of a Mandalorian experience or a Mandalorian NFT or whatever? I'm not getting anything. They haven't brought all those things to get disparate things together. Like I think they did that very well in their business plan when they started. And this goes back to the 50s, 60s, and 70s when they put Disney World at the center of their business model, and everything else drove to the park. That was the goal of the comics, the goal of the films, the goal of the storytelling, the goal of all the merchandise, everything they did. They were all revenue producing, but the goal was to get them to the park, and that was their highest yield product. And that generated, of course, the most revenue and created the Disney that we know today. I would like to see them swap that out a little bit. And I don't know if the goal is ultimately to get them to Disney World or whatever it is, but I would love to see a little bit more like what we did at Content Marketing Institute when we were just said, hey, let's get them to sign up as a subscriber, and then let's get them to sign up to two more things, the webinar series or the magazine or whatever it is, the podcast, subscribe to the podcast, because we know that creates our best customer, signing up to 3 different things. I don't know, Robert, if Disney's doing that. So, I mean, I'm off the subject of their metaverse involvement because I just think there's just so much opportunity in front of them right now. And maybe they take remember what Walmart did when everyone went .com, and Walmart just sort of waited back and said, we're going to let everyone kind of figure this thing out, and we're going to let everyone else be the first through the wall. And that's fine, and then we'll clean up the mess, and we'll do this a year or two later, and it'll be awesome. Well, they did a great job of that. That worked to perfection. Disney could do the same thing. Let everybody else figure this out, and they could just buy buy a platform, buy their way in, buy the technology, because they've got plenty of cash. That's what I would rather see them do, I think.
I think you're right, and you know, we talked a bit about this in the last episode when we talked about the opportunity there for these brands to create a world and connecting all those worlds together so that you subscribe to Disney instead of subscribing to any one aspect of Disney.
Exactly.
Right? You know, and so but here's what interests me about this whole thing. In this article, and there's a reason that we picked this article in particular, not only because it fed into Joe's, you know, visionary perspective here, but also there's a section of the article that talks about where else this is happening. And this is the part that really got me and fascinated me, which was talking about, they use the example of Microsoft, and they actually embed a tweet in the article from Satya Nadella, who is the fantastically talented. I admire what he's been able to do for Microsoft so much, their CEO. And he talks about, he's got this little video in there that talks about how the metaverse is here, but not from a Disney-like perspective, but like from actual businesses, right? So what does this mean for, you know, me in consulting? Or what does this mean for someone in an architect business? Or what does this mean for someone in a manufacturing or, you know, B2B business? And this is where I think this idea of a limited building of a world can really make sense, because the video really talks about how collaboration and working within an environment can be really interesting, like manufacturing, where you're together on a floor, or you can virtually tour something, or you can actually start to connect these experiences in a way that lets you work virtually from wherever you are. There's a lot in this sort of virtual media, you know, metaverse idea that is smaller than just bringing it out to the entire world. And I actually think that's more useful in the short term, maybe not as sexy in the long term. And the one that, what it made me think of, and I totally, you know, have forgotten about this until I watched this little video. My brother-in-law was telling me about this, how he's using this now in his architecture business. Because what has happened is that during COVID, he's an architect and private architect, works on many projects, houses and small commercial buildings and all sorts of things. What has happened now, he's got it set up where he can meet his contractor partners inside, because he does the blueprints, he does the CAD drawings, so they can 3D render that. And they can take virtual tours together with his contractor, and he puts on his Oculus headset and he meets his contractor in the building.
Oh, that's fascinating.
They point to the ceiling, and he's like, "This is where I want the trim, and this is how I want it to look, and this is, you know, and this is the other thing down here, you know, and this is where the plumbing is going to be, and let me point out to you where the electrical is going to go," and all that stuff. And they're actually in the meeting place. So they're on a quote-unquote Zoom call, but they're actually working together in the physical, or in the virtual, in this case, space. And that, to me, is really, that's an interesting idea that I think is not perhaps getting as much mainstream media attention. And I think that starts to play into this as well, which is, as we start thinking from this work from home, work remotely, collaboration online together, you know, what's the next generation of a Zoom meeting? What's the next generation of a collaborative consulting meeting where we can all get together in a space, and it's not just, you know, cartoon characters getting in there together, but it's actually, you know, really interesting rendered virtual worlds. And so it's a fascinating thing.
Well, I think the other thing you got to remember, I don't know when that day is going to be, because we all need the hardware. I mean, you need an Oculus.
Yeah, of course.
Unless there's some kind of plug into your brain that I'm not aware of that's going, you know, that Elon Musk is going to come up with. We don't have that yet. But what I love about a company like a Microsoft, they already have been practicing in the metaverse for quite some time. If you're aware of Minecraft, they own Minecraft.
Yeah, of course.
And they've been doing a great job. And so I think that's where we're going to take steps. We already have Roblox and Minecraft and these worlds set up. It's not metaverse like you're inside, but you're part of, you're living in. You can buy property, you can do those things. That's why tokens are so crazy. So, but I think the other thing that if I'm a brand listening to this and you're trying to figure out how to get involved, you might also want to just diversify a little bit and take some risk off the table and buy some plots in some of these properties that are heading that direction. Like there's Sandbox out there is one place you could do that. You could do another one at Decentraland, where you can buy your own plot in your land. And by the way, at Sandbox, you can go and you see Atari and you see Gap and you see Nike. They've already bought their land. So it's almost like Second Life 20 years later, Robert, that we're seeing these things actually happen. So maybe instead of looking at a proprietary program like a Minecraft or like a WandaVision world or whatever, we're thinking Metaverse, maybe we hedge our bets a little bit and we can go ahead and experiment as part of a group structure or a third-party platform.
I think that's right, and my only point there is that this can often sound like something that we don't need to pay that much attention to because it's Disney or it's video games or it's that sort of thing, and I think most of that is probably true for most of us, right? This has become sort of a little bit like entertainment, right? More than anything else, it's like, oh, let's watch what happens. Let's get a box of popcorn and see what happens. But I think the reason that it's so important and the reason that I'm glad that we cover it is because there are real things happening, right? There's real work going on and there's real work happening, and the use cases may be niche right now, but they will become more common. The ability to get into it will be, sometimes less onerous than putting on a headset. I'm sure that technology is coming and those use cases are coming. And so I think it's something it's important to pay attention to.
It's hard. I mean, for you and I mean, we lived with, there was one day no internet and then there was internet. Right. And we're right at that stage right now with this. So it's hard and this is going to be, in my opinion, bigger than the internet or maybe what the internet should have always been. So it's hard. It's hard for me to be more bullish on this as we are, but we just don't have the applications yet because we're so early. I mean, if you said that let's say if this was a baseball game, we're just getting out of the dugout. I talked about that reference a lot with content marketing. When we talked 10 years ago, we said, we're just at the start of this thing. Well, we're just at the start of this thing right now. We're so early as we can be. So now is the time to experiment and, get your MetaMask, get your digital wallet, start figuring things out, be a part of it, learn, spend an hour a day learning about this stuff. And in a year, it will really pay off.
Yep, that's absolutely right. Well, speaking of experimentation, it segues very nicely into our next news story here. So Quentin Tarantino in the news again. And so we'll link to two articles here in the show notes because it's nice sort of tit for tat or whatever you want to call it, sort of the two sides of the story. The one that we will so first start with is basically from the Daily Beast. Quentin Tarantino sued by Miramax over Pulp Fiction NFTs. So apparently the lovely Quentin Tarantino was at an event and said like, what is this whole thing about NFTs? And basically somebody went off and said, hey, NFTs are kind of cool. You should get into it. Well, he took that to heart and basically said he was going to launch an NFT. And now Miramax is taking legal action against Quentin Tarantino after the director announced plans to auction off 7 uncut scenes from his cult classic Pulp Fiction as NFTs. Tarantino said he'd be minting the handwritten scenes along with audio commentary that he promised would reveal secrets about the film and its creator at a crypto art convention in New York on November 2nd, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Then, on the flip side of that, we'll link to the Daily Variety article, which basically says Quentin Tarantino's attorney responds to the Pulp Fiction NFT lawsuit and says Miramax is wrong. Quentin Tarantino's attorney has responded to this lawsuit by basically saying Miramax is wrong, plain and simple. Tarantino's contract is clear. He has the right to sell NFTs of his handwritten script for Pulp Fiction, and this ham-fisted attempt to prevent him from doing so will fail. So I guess... I definitely have. I totally want to hear what you think about this. I have a take on this as well that is marketing related, as you might expect. But so, what do you think?
Let me stop there.
What do you think?
It's it's funny because you read both articles and I was like, oh yeah, shoot, Miramax, Tarantino, what was he, an idiot? Did he not know what he had the rights over? And then you read Tarantino's and say, oh yeah, well, it sounds like legally he has the rights over this area.
Well, I guarantee you that the contract never mentions NFTs.
Oh, yeah, exactly.
Yeah, in 1994, nobody knew what the hell an NFT is. So it never, like the attorney going, oh, yeah, it says it right here. It says he's got the right to sell NFT. No, it doesn't say that.
Here's so we can talk about this. So let's take our 2017 book that you authored and I helped with, Killing Marketing.
Right. That's it. There you go. Yep.
And right now you and I have the audio rights. So in audio form, we can do whatever we want, which we did. We have an audio book. Right. Great. If somebody buys that, we get all the proceeds from that. Wonderful. If somebody buys the ebook or the print version, that runs through McGraw-Hill. They have all the rights to do that. If they want to do a print version in another language, they have to make that happen. We have some say in that, but that's all theirs, and we've given them the rights to that portion. If something like, if we said we wanted to make an NFT out of Killing Marketing, we would be in complete gray area. It'd probably would fall under digital rights, which would be an ebook, which would fall under McGraw-Hill. My point to saying this whole thing is that you get your legal stuff in order now, and start looking at all your there's so many legal landmines going on right now. If you look at DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations, non-fungible tokens, fungible tokens, this is all the lawyers are at the gate, Robert. They are waiting. There are so many lawsuits about ready to happen. And what I would tell any creator or any marketer or anyone with any kind of intellectual property is to make sure you've got your legal house in order. Do it now, and then you'll be protected in the future. I don't know how this is going to turn out. I'm assuming they're going to.
Oh, I do.
Oh, well, you would know how's it going to turn out.
Oh, I do. Are you finished? Because
I mean, I guess what I'm saying is that I've mentioned to a couple of our friends out there who are lawyers that if you were a Web3 expert, you would be much in demand right now because I need the help. You need the help. Everyone needs the help.
Well, as I told you, here in Hollywood, this has become topic number one.
Nice.
I mean, just speaking to the idea of transactions versus winners and losers and law types of activities, this has become number one in terms of transaction types of ideas. The idea of intellectual property rights as well as securing characters and building worlds and scripts and all that kind of stuff. So, but here's the interesting thing, like. And I'm glad you brought up the Killing Marketing example, because with the Quentin Tarantino thing here, it's not that we would make Killing Marketing into an NFT. We would make certain pages of our handwritten notes while we were writing.
That's right.
Killing Marketing. And so the words may or may not be what appear in Killing Marketing, but they are the words that we used, that when we were, so early rough drafts, basically. Now, I don't handwrite, so Quentin Tarantino's famous for handwriting his scripts, right? He doesn't use a typewriter. He actually longhand them out. He's famous for that. And so these are going to be, I'm assuming, scans.
Almost like artwork.
JPEGs of various scenes, very famous, that ended up being very famous scenes. The question to me on the legal side is, what is he actually selling, right? Because this is what it'll come down to. When you sell this, he's not giving you rights to the movie. He's not giving you any sort of commission. He's not giving you any sort of royalty on what the movie makes. There's no intellectual property rights being conveyed here. So what is it he's actually selling? Well, it sounds like from the two articles, one is he's selling some insider information. So he's selling some content that he could give away in an interview, or you could give away and everything. So that's not going to be owned by Miramax, just that inside information. That's just his opinion about things. And then what else is he selling? Well, he's selling basically a picture of his notes and he's not even really selling the picture of the notes. He's selling that as a talisman for something else. Maybe it's a meeting with him. Maybe it's you get to go have lunch. Maybe you get a special phone call with Quentin to hear more stories about it.
It's the representation of access.
It's the representation of something else. And that's what his lawyers, I have to imagine, will argue, is that I'm not selling anything having to do with Pulp Fiction.
He's basically selling a meeting. And
that's right.
And we took a picture of notes that have nothing to do with anything.
That's right. That's exactly right. To represent the ticket, right? You know, to that. And so that's the interesting idea here. And the gray area that I think you're appropriately pointing out is that picture is like, you know, like when you do a work for hire for a company, you know, you're usually, you know, the language is usually pretty clear on that, you know, in the standard contract where it says, you know, anything you develop, notes, drawings, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, those are all the property of whoever's buying your services, right? And so that's pretty comprehensive. Screenplay contracts usually don't read like that, but work for hire does. So this is, you know, so you could start to look at it that way and start to review your contract language accordingly. To your point, my last point on this is all of this is a stunt. Every part of this is a marketing stunt.
Yeah.
Yep. Every bit of this is Quentin Tarantino calling up Miramax and saying, "Hey, sue me for this. This will be good for both of us." This is.
No, you think that happened?
Yep. Absolutely right. Absolutely yes. Because what does this do? 1, free press. 2, it raises the value of these things inordinately. Quentin Tarantino calls up, or Quentin Tarantino's agent calls up Miramax and says, "Hey, listen, let's fight. Let's get into a fight about
split
this.
The proceeds.
It'll be a great way to drive up interest and value of these things when we ultimately sell them, and we'll cut you in for a deal. We'll cut you in for, you know, whatever percentage of the deal."
Oh man, you're probably
guaranteed 100%.
Right. That's horrible.
And that's not horrible. It's genius.
It is genius, but it's horrible at the
genius.
same time. Because
this is you know, this is the same as when John Cleese, and I always name drop this because I'm me, when we were at Content Marketing World, 5 minutes, 3 minutes, like literally as the music is playing, he leans over to me and he goes, "Remember, we're supposed to fight." And I looked at him and I was like, "What do you mean we're supposed to fight?" He said, "If we fight, it's interesting." He said, "If we argue, it's interesting. If we just get up there and violently agree with each other, nobody cares." And boy, that lesson has stuck with me. I mean, nobody cares about Quentin Tarantino's NFTs if there's not some controversy around them.
This
creates all of that.
I totally disagree with you, Robert. I vehemently disagree. I think you are a fool.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you know, you could think that if you want to, Pulitzi.
You know what? Yeah. You're probably right. It is probably genius, but my feelings about humanity are just a little bit lower because we're doing this type of thing.
So when you ask me what I know is going to happen, here's what's going to happen. A settlement. The two parties were able to settle their agreements offline. That's what's going to happen. After they whip this up into a frenzy and it goes out they're going to go out for sale with it. They're going to, and then when everybody goes, "Hey, what happened to the lawsuit?" It's going to be like, "Nah, they settled it. They settled it offline."
Yeah, you're probably right. Man. So a couple things. It is good now. It is good marketing, especially on the experimental side.
But by the way, this is good marketing. You know, this is good. This is good PR. This is good marketing fight. You know, so I've seen this happen behind the scenes in a couple of other, you know, businesses before, where it's like, you know, let's go pick a fight with somebody. You call them up and you go, "Hey, we're going to pick a fight with you. Fight back. It'll be interesting. We'll all get the clicks. We'll all get the views. We'll all get the thing. It'll create some, you know, it'll create some noise, and you know, and everybody wins."
All right. Yeah. Okay. What I will say is, there is a whole new area of legal issues.
Law here. Absolutely, 100%.
And I would like to see some people get into that area.
Well, it's going to be really interesting for, you know, so just to the point, right, of what we were just talking about. You know, I think it's less interesting on the Hollywood side because that's going to sort itself out very quickly and very easily here. Where the really interesting thing is going to be is on that work for hire type of idea, where designers, especially content creators that write for other brands. So if your job is writing blog posts, or if your job is writing white papers, or if your job is writing all kinds of things for other clients, or creating or designing things, this is really relevant for you. Because what it means is that contract that you sort of blithely sign now when you design a logo, or you design some imagery, or you design a PowerPoint, or whatever it is you're designing for that brand, and the clause in that talks about the IP that basically says anything you send over to us, whether it's your ideas, your drawings, your schematics, there's a whole list in the usual standard content template that basically says anything you do in the name of this project, we own. Basically, we own your thought process and your intellectual property here. So then that means if you took a picture of your original sketch for that logo and you said, I want to make that an NFT because I happen to design the new Nike logo, and basically, wow, I'm now super famous because I just, designed the new Nike logo, and I'm going to make my original sketch on the back of a napkin of that available via an NFT. Nope, you are not going to do that, because that sketch is owned by Nike. And that's where it'll get interesting in terms of new contracts and sort of rights that can be conveyed and that you want to convey, and where the lawyers will really, really start to play a role in this, because that's going to become a thing.
Interesting. Yeah. So if you're a content creator, read the fine print.
Yep.
And if you're
what you're signing up
hiring for contractors, you probably want to ask for the world.
Today it may not be a thing, right? You're like, NFTs, big deal. It's it's such a small thing, but 5 years from now, 10 years from now, when all of a sudden that thing you created went viral and it's awesome, and you wanted to think about how it's getting used out there in the digital world, it's worth thinking about now.
What's interesting though is, over the past how many years we've been just monetizing the end product. And now we're monetizing the creative process.
Yes.
Right? Isn't that fascinating?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the lawyers have known that for a long time. They've monetized the creative process, right? But the thing is that creative process hasn't been valuable before. Yeah. And now with the idea that you can actually monetize some of that process as the creator, well, now, of course, you need to start thinking about it, because before it's like, nobody wants to see my original, sketch that I made at the bar of that, awesome new thing. Nobody wants to see that. That's not valuable. But if it becomes like a thing, and now all of a sudden I can create an NFT and say, you own the original of this. Well, now, okay, now it's something different.
When I got to go back, I might have something I could sell for $5 in creating things.
Yeah, exactly.
Who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe the 300th episode. Nobody wants that. No, forget it.
Yeah, well, episode number 1 is still on OpenSea, folks, so you can go buy it.
Forget it.
We made it. We made an NFT.
Yeah,
I'm
gonna burn it. I'm gonna burn it like we're burning ETH. Forget it.
I'm gonna
burn it. I'm gonna burn that token so nobody can get it.
Burn it down. All right. Well, here we go. Let's cover our last story here quickly, which is all about marketing and how the interest in other collectibles as well as NFTs are shaping the future of marketing. This comes to us courtesy of Marketing Dive, great publication that we often pull stories from. And it's part of their Deep Dive series. Great article if you're looking for some interesting sort of introductions to the world of NFTs and marketing and why brands are actually doing this. It says consumer appetites for NFTs remain niche, but the format could serve as an important experiment if the metaverse ever takes off. I think that subheadline really just sums up everything we just said. But the story opens up and says collectibles are inescapable in marketing at the moment. Non-fungible tokens, or NFTs, unduplicable digital assets that use blockchain technology to certify ownership of a piece of media like a photo or video, have experienced a sustained surge of interest from brands in 2021. And while NFTs are the buzziest iteration of collectibles representing an aspect of the so-called metaverse, there are analogs in real-world goods with a proliferation of branded merchandise, limited edition product collaborations targeted at superfan consumers. For marketers, experimenting with collectibles remains a PR-driven tactic, but one that tries to read the tea leaves on what the next generation of consumers, digital natives, readily familiar with channels like gaming, will want to see from brands. And it basically goes on, really, I think, a quite good primer with examples linked, talking about both the short term and the long term and the power of intellectual property. Really just I think a really well-written article sort of explaining how marketing strategies from brands are starting to experiment with this and sort of see where the nooks and crannies are that may be creating some level of value. So it's a really good business case for experimentation and just a great primer in terms of what may be coming.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great article, especially if you're on the marketing side. The most of what we're seeing right now it kind of goes back to what we just talked about. It's a marketing stunt. Most of them, the McRib NFT, everything's a marketing stunt. There's no utility. And it's almost like it is with, if you look at the rise,
which is a fad, as I've said and I continue my position on that, just in case anybody's wondering. I continue my position that this is totally a fad and totally the not the main story.
Well, if you look, so look at all the let's say from October of 2020 to June of 2021, and you look at the majority of the NFTs that were created during that time, they're generally art-based. It's a picture, it's an image, and there's no utility. That was phase 1 or phase 0.5, if you want. Now, what we're going to see here in the very near future, and that's what you take from this article and take it to the next level, is what's the utility? Do I get access? Am I in a club? Is this a membership? Who do I get to talk to? Where do I get to go? Those types of things. That's the next level of that. And even with Tarantino's thing, if you get access to Tarantino, I mean, that's something, right? That's a little bit more utility based than just, I get this image and it's a good story. So I think that if I'm a marketing person experimenting with NFTs, I'm thinking, okay, let's just think a little bit more outside of the box. Then we're going to take a picture of this thing, or you have this image, you could put it into the metaverse, which is all fine. But I would imagine the next year or so, it's all going to be about what can I do with this thing? Let me see if I can take this thing for a swing. Where does it go? Will it be valuable to other people? Do other people want these experiences? Are these limited experiences? So for content marketers, we're really talking about content experiences that you can't get anywhere else that are scarce. And that has value to people, not just, this is an image.
Well, I think you just said it really well, which is that it's about, experiences, content-driven experiences, and ultimately that comes down to what are we actually marketing? What are we actually selling? And it's not just the image, right? The limited edition, specialty designed, Whopper, or the specially designed version of the Coors logo or whatever it happens to be. That's literally just designing a new ticket for something. And you're designing the ticket to access to what? What experience, what content-driven experience that are you selling it for? And that's the utility, like you say. That's the value of what it is that is getting done here. And that's whether you call it the next phase or, quite frankly, the phase, because I think all of this has really just been a bubble that will ultimately go, people will go, oh, right, that's not, okay, got it, right? The whole, with exception, I think there are still some exceptions.
There'll be
to that,
5% winners that have built a community that have
or just art, or just literally art, right? Because I think there is some, but what makes art valuable is scarcity, and so the scarcity of a particular digital piece of art, regarding the artist and how many they've made and how many are out in the world and how you access it.
And the story behind
all those things,
the story behind
and the
story
behind it, and all of that, right? Is so. I think there are some exceptions to that rule, but for the most part, brands and marketing, it's all going to be utility, right? It's all about the utility.
Yeah, and that's where I would be if I'm in the marketing room right now. So if I'm a content marketer, and you're trying to figure out what do I do in Web3, I think that's what you're thinking about. How can we think about the NFT as the greatest opt-in subscription you could ever create?
Yep.
And what could you deliver with that subscription that somebody's paid a lot of money for, that people will want to resell, and every time they do, you get more revenue for, and you've created a new audience member, if you will. So those are things that are those are conversations worth having now, even if you don't do anything for a year or so.
And not to get all self-congratulatory or anything here, but in Killing Marketing, bringing the book back, that thing that I work so hard on that you...
Yeah, exactly.
You and I came up with this chart, right? We came up with a chart, and we sort of, it's this. I don't know if you remember it. It's the one with the, the sort of the growth as how strategic content would be, right? So if we looked at it in the 90s, content was a tactic. If we looked at it in the early 2000s, it was content as a marketing strategy, and in the late 2000s, it's content as a business strategy. And then as we get into 2020 and beyond, it was content as a business model. And so we used to use that in all these presentations we used to give. And so not to get too self-congratulatory here, but this is it, right? This is exactly what it is that, and this is why in some varying degree I get really excited about this, is because this is the fruition of content as a business model, where content becomes so ingrained in the business strategy, it becomes part of the actual operating model of the business. Creating worlds, creating ecosystems, creating experiences that go beyond the products that we traditionally and classically sell, but actually become part of the entire experience. It's off so many, gurus or consultants or thought leaders, some people out there, you'll see the classic sort of naysayer go, well, nobody wants to have a relationship with their butter, right? Nobody opens up their relationship, or their refrigerator and says, where can I go check out the social media channel of my milk, right? And that's true, absolutely. I believe that's 100% true. But if that butter brand or that milk brand can create and monetize a community around whatever it may be, health, so many different, topics that they could cover. Well, now you may want to have a relationship with that brand for different reasons than the fact that they also happen to provide you with butter. And that's the opportunity, I think, for businesses today as we start thinking about how are we going to pierce the noise and, get up over the idea of, how much crap we have to consume and, differentiate in a crowded marketplace and all that kind of stuff. It gets back to our friend Don Schultz, right? Who says people can copy every single thing you do except the way that you communicate, right? And the only thing that you can do to communicate better is to create an experience that is differentiated, and this is a perfect way to do that.
And I'll tell you what, it's so funny when you look at something like a Bored Ape Yacht Club. Any brand could have created that. It could have been any brand. And by the way,
literally any monkey could have.
Well, and here's the thing. If you want to be part of that club, you talk about business model. If you want to just be part of that club of 10,000 assets, you have to pay right now $250,000 for one. Just do the math on that. That's larger than a lot of companies out there.
Yeah.
So I think that, and this is what's great for content people. Every one of these things needs a story and needs a roadmap. You have to have a lot of different content components. So you can't just launch this thing without a content strategy. You cannot do it.
Yeah, it needs a world. It needs a whole set of things. All right. It's time for our rants and raves. Yes. Yeah, where we're going off on a little bit of a rant or a little bit of a rave, Joe and I, and basically making us feel a little bit like Taylor Swift at the moment, or making us feel a little bit like maybe Jake Gyllenhaal feels a little bit right now. Like, I thought I was done with this. 2012. It was 8 years ago. Come on, give me a break. I got the scarf. I sent it back. So anyway, would you like to go for mine? Is very quick.
I'm happy to go first because I'm very excited about this. Because I know we talked beforehand and you're not aware of this, so I'm going to talk to you. As many people listening to this probably don't know what's going on, but there is something that was created last week called Constitution DAO. Again, DAO stands for Decentralized Autonomous Organization. And there were quite a few interesting people, including investor Packy McCormick and a bunch of friends. They launched this together. And they did this because Sotheby's is coming out. And actually, this is already, I don't know what's going to happen because this show that we're on right now is going to go live Friday morning. But the Sotheby's auction of one of the official versions of the U.S. Constitution is happening tonight, Thursday, 11/18 at 6:30 p.m. The estimated price is to go between $15 and $20 million. Now, I don't know if you know this, but when the Constitution was ratified, there were quite a few official copies. I think there were 50 official copies that were created so that the delegates could take them back and get ratification from the states. And there is only, some people will say different. Some people say there's 11, 12, 13, right? According to Constitution DAO, there's 13 of these officially available that are left of the 50. There was one. All the other 12 are with the government. 12, or the 13th one, was with a private collector, and that private collector is now selling it. So this is the only one that's available. And there's a group of people that got together and created a DAO, which is amazing use of a DAO. And if you go on Constitution DAO's page, it says, "We're buying the U.S. Constitution. For the first time in 33 years, one of 13 surviving copies of the official edition of the Constitutional Convention from the Constitutional Convention will be publicly auctioned by Sotheby's. It is the only copy that is still owned by private collectors. The proceeds from the auction will be given to a charity that has been established by the current owner." So they started this thing, Robert, just 7-8 days ago, and their goal was to raise $20 million so they could bid on this, and then they would use that, and then they, of course, a DAO is governed by tokens, and then everyone would own a piece of this thing, and they would decide how to use that. Well, I didn't think they were going to reach their goal, Robert, because I looked 2 days ago, it was about $5 million. As of this morning, they're over $40 million that they've raised.
Wow.
They have more than enough to buy this thing. Totally crazy. The Discord group has over 15,000 people in such a short period of time. It's amazing what a community can do together and bring this thing in. So anyway, I'm not gonna.
It's like an IPO. It's like an IPO for a piece of art.
Exactly. And this is. What I love about this example is it's a great application. There was Pleaser DAO did this a month or two ago when they bought that exclusive Wu-Tang album that was one of one, and they bought that because it was seized by the U.S. government, and they bought that for like $4 million, and now they're thinking about how to use that. This is another application of a DAO. And so you start thinking about, well, what are some other applications? Let's say that you and I, in your area of Los Angeles, there was a historical building that was going to shut down. What if we got a group of people together, started a DAO to save that historical structure? Or what if we wanted to buy a minor league baseball team? Or what if you and I wanted to buy a bar together with 1,000 of our friends? You could now start a DAO because you can tokenize it. You can govern that way. It's a decentralized way. It's not a hierarchy of like hierarchical structure like most organizations. It's done through sort of a democracy by token. Again, lots of legal landmines. Nobody knows about where this is going to go. I totally see.
Management landmines.
Exactly.
As well,
we don't know. We don't know where this is going to go. But the fact that we're seeing more applications is just amazing. So I'm going to be. I put in a little bit to it because I want to be part of this thing too. So I added a couple $100 into this thing to be along for the ride, if you will. And at 6:30 tonight, we'll see if they get it. And if they get it, then there'll be all kinds of decisions that need to be made on what they're going to do. And it sounds like the next generation of Constitution DAO is to buy other U.S. artifacts and do a similar thing. And I think the plan for this one is to put it in the Smithsonian and to sell different rights off and generate revenue different ways. So I don't know. I don't know where it's going to go, but I'm fascinated by it. And we'll put the show. We'll put the Constitution DAO stuff in the show notes. It's fascinating. It is all. It was covered in Morning Brew this morning. It was in I think New York Times covered it. I mean, it's like a big thing. It's like a thing. So there you go.
Yeah, it's like a thing.
It is a thing.
It's like a thing.
They might buy a thing. They might.
Yeah, they're gonna buy a thing, and they might become a thing. All right. Yeah, I have a very quick thing. So it is also weirdly a lot of stories coming out of Daily Variety here. This was a story that came out this week, and it's about Netflix and how they're measuring things. And I came out of TV measurement, as some of you long-term listeners of the show know, and so this was a particularly fascinating story to me, where The article says, and this was true, Netflix basically came out and said, yeah, they've heard the complaints about how it cherry picks reported data and releases the content on its platform and has, so it's really opaque about what you can actually see. And I've talked before about how that has really thrown a bit of a, information and data bomb into the middle of negotiations in Hollywood, because it's very hard to negotiate for your actor or for your director when you have zero clue as to how many views it got, right? So when Netflix comes back and goes, nah, we're not that interested in that director anymore, and sort of negotiate a lower price, they can do that because nobody knows, right? Nobody knows how many views that particular show got or whatever, because it's all proprietary information. So they've heard those complaints, and apparently they've now come out with a much more expanded view of its data, which honestly is not that expanded of a view. It's kind of silly, actually. That basically all they did was they sort of announced an expansion to their top 10 lists, right, which basically reports the top 10 Netflix shows, movies, etc., globally, and now you can sort of segment it by country. And basically, it also says it's enlisted the professional services firm EY, so Ernst & Young, to audit its metrics, with those results to be released in 2022. They kind of bury the lead here, because that's the more interesting thing, is that we'll see what actually comes out in 2022. So, stay tuned for that, to see what actually comes out from the EY audit and see how they're actually doing on those things and how much they can be trusted. But basically what the article says, and I agree 100% that this is basically Netflix flexing. This is basically saying, hey, listen, this is this is how much global hours are spent with Netflix. So this is all for the market. This is all a marketing play, and you should trust these numbers not at all. Because it is very selectively placed, I'm sure quite filtered, and quite frankly doesn't show so much of what would really be valuable here to sponsors, to Hollywood on negotiations of contracts, on anybody looking at competitive. So it's all like a great big David Blaine magic trick that's going on right here. So I just thought it was interesting, because so much of what is happening now as we get into these walled gardens, right, whether it be Facebook or whether it be Netflix or whether it be Google or whatever, is sort of like trusting the internally measurement, like, this is how many views you got, this is what you got, this is what's real. There's like, no, there's nothing happening here. And this is the sort of the dangerous side of the walled garden idea, and putting our content, as we talk about on Rented Land a lot, you're sort of believing everything that they say, which may or may not be, quite frankly, the real truth. So just a good example.
I mean, that's the power that they have with their first-party data. Yep. They can do whatever they want. Right. I looked at it. It's fascinating to look at. But yeah, I don't know how you could judge it. You can only judge it by the other ones in the same category. And it's so whatever.
Well, it's a little bit like looking at, so one of the ones that I always get on marketers around is that they put on their blog, right, most popular articles, right? And so you'll see a list of the top 10 most popular blog articles on somebody's site, and they use that usually as a navigational trick. And the problem is that it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, right? So calling it, so first of all, it measures visits, not popularity. So in other words, what they should say is most visited blog. It may be people going, look how ridiculous this thing is, right? And sending it to all their friends, and their friends going, yeah, you're right, it's ridiculous, and sharing it with their friends. So it's not necessarily it's popular, it's just that it's most visited. The second thing is that as you call it the most popular blog, it's going to become more popular. And so it's a bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy there for them, and it becomes a bit of a marketing tool or an editorial tool, more specifically, to say, hey, listen, if there's something that's kind of there and I want to promote it, let's just call it the top 8 show, and then let's see if we can boost it to number 6 and number 5 and get more viewership for it. So it's this kind of metrics are a tool, not necessarily indicative of what's really going on.
A marketing stunt, if you will, seems to be
a marketing stunt. Yeah, the marketing stunts.
Throughout
there we
the
go.
episode.
This is there we go. There we go.
Very good.
All right, what do you got coming up?
Well, I think we've got Thanksgiving coming up next week.
Yeah.
So, just looking forward to getting together with the family as safely as we possibly can. Yeah. And we usually travel on Thanksgiving. We're not this year, which is it'll be nice seeing the kids too. I haven't seen them for a while. So coming home from college, so I know it's different because this is our first year as empty nesters. So we're enjoying our time, but we're also looking forward to hanging out with the full family force, if you will. How about you, sir?
I am going to spend the weekend sort of doing some work and getting some stuff done prior to next week because I would like to really not do any work next week during the holiday. And yes, getting together with some family next week and, and thinking about we're going to do the show a little early next week, just so everybody's aware, so that we're going to do, so that you'll be able to listen to it prior if you feel like it, or you could watch it on that, or listen to it rather on the, on your post-turkey walk, if that's the thing that you like to do as well. So yeah, so I got that. That's there what
you
I
go.
got going on.
All right.
Well, that is it, folks. If you want to get all the goodness, and why wouldn't you want to get all the goodness of this podcast show notes or dive into any of the other 298 97, somewhere in there, somewhere around 300 episodes. Just get on over to our websites. A lot. thisoldmarketing.site. Remember, folks, Twitter questions, audio questions, bring them. We're getting close to 300. It's going to be fun. We really would love to get your voice on the show. And until we meet again next week, early next week for the holiday week, remember, it is your story to tell. Tell it well. See you next week on This Old Marketing.